Welcome to A Fine Time, The Nanny Revisited. This is a podcast about The Nanny, where we recap each episode and then discuss, sharing our own unique take on each episode. I'm Bernadette.
And I'm Debbie. Today we're talking about episode 73, Green Card. As usual, we'll start with a brief summary of the episode. Brighton is failing French, so Fran hires a very attractive male tutor to help him, replacing the very attractive female tutor hired by Maxwell. The new tutor, Philippe, and Fran hit it off as he's always telling her, Je t'adore. After only knowing her a short time and without meeting her mother, Philippe proposes. Fran is undeterred by Maxwell's insinuation that the only reason Philippe is marrying her is because their impending marriage would make him eligible for a green card. Even though Philippe is marrying Fran, he loves all women and makes a pass at Cece. Niles convinces Cece that telling Maxwell Philippe's character will make her much more attractive to Maxwell because boys only want a toy when another boy is playing with it. As the audience could predict, that move backfires for Cece. Maxwell tells Fran that her French fiance Philippe is a philanderer, and Fran ends her short-lived engagement after a passionate kiss with Maxwell, leaving Cece wondering why she ever listens to Niles. Bernadette, do you want to add anything?
No, that was great.
Thank you. Would you like to take us to scene 1 in the kitchen?
Yes, so we open in the kitchen with Niles, and Fran walks in the side door, and she's obviously just come back from shopping. She has a great Mother's Day gift. It was the red dot sale, and she kind of holds it up. And would you describe it like lingerie?
No.
No.
I
What
would
did you?
describe it as a like fuchsia slash magenta silky shirt. It looks like a button down to me. Like it
Oh,
has a
okay.
collar and it has long sleeves. It's a long sleeve,
It like
shiny.
somehow made me think of like it seems skimpier to me, but I
It's the
didn't
fabric.
look. Yeah, okay.
It's a fabric. It's a similar fabric that you would see like negligees made out of, which I think is
Hmm.
why you assumed it was it was lingerie. But to me, it looks like it's a long sleeve shirt that looks like
That
something
makes
Sylvia
more
would wear.
sense. Makes more sense. But anyway, she's showing off the perfect Mother's Day gift, and then she gives Niles the magic marker he needed. Well, in comes Brighton, and he starts lamenting about, how much energy is being used because everybody always leaves the light on in the home. And so he turns off the kitchen light and then he says to Fran, "Would you just sign my report card?" And of
Mm-hmm.
course, this does not work on Fran.
No.
Lights on, looks at the report card. B, you failed French? And he's like, "No, I got a B." And she's like, You turned an F to a B by using a magic marker. Like, you can't, and we've seen this time and again in previous episodes, like, you can't get a trick by Fran because she's done them. Like, she
Mm-hmm.
knows what's up.
Exactly.
And anyway, so she's horrified that Brighton is failing French. And so she
So Brighton tells her,
tells
Fran,
yeah,
you
yeah,
promise me.
don't tell my dad. You know what kind of you know how much of a pain he is. And at this point, like from our perspective as the audience, you know, we at first just see Brighton and Fran, right? But
Mm-hmm.
of course, Fran kind of gets a look on her face and she's like, "You mean the most compassionate, understanding, handsome?" And it's because, of course, Maxwell has come up behind Brighton and has heard everything. And Brighton catches on immediately when Fran starts saying that. And he's like, he's standing right behind me.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, at that point, it comes up that, Maxwell says, "Okay, you're going to need a tutor." And Fran tries a trick. She says, "Oh, well, everyone knows the best way to learn like a foreign language is to immerse yourself in the culture." And Maxwell's like, "No, you're not getting a trip to Paris, Miss Fine."
Right.
And I think it's Niles, who mentions like when he wanted to like work on his Swedish meatballs, he was
Yep,
sent to IKEA.
exactly.
And so anyway, so again, this whole idea of a tutor comes up, and short skirt, high heels, an accent, and
And that's Brighton saying that he
yeah,
might not mind a hot-looking French tutor, some
yes.
babe in a short skirt, spiked heels, and a little accent.
And Fran was again a common thing. She's like, "Oh, your father wouldn't hire a floozy like that." You know what I mean? Um,
To teach
and
his kids, right?
she walks by and she's also wearing high heels.
A
Like that.
short skirt
And
with
she
a
has
little
an
accent.
accent. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. So again, Brighton needs to work on his French. Is there
Exactly.
anything you want to add to that first scene?
So I guess I have a question for you
Yeah.
about the first scene. So Fran talks about how she got her mother a great Mother's Day present on the red dot sale, and then she hands Niles the red magic marker. Did you understand it that she created the red dot herself?
Oh, I missed it.
Okay, because that's how I've interpreted it. Um,
Oh, okay. So again, Fran continues to be a little fraudster.
a little bit. Yeah, yeah. Don't do this at home, kids.
Nope, don't do it.
So, shall I take us to scene 2 in the
Yes.
living room?
Hmm.
So Fran is sitting there with the shirt that she got her mother, and Gracie asks her, "What are you doing?" And so Fran explains that she's sewing the size tag in upside down so that the L looks like a 7, because that way she's basically knocking 40 pounds off her for Mother's Day.
Hmm.
To which Gracie says, "Better you should give her some grandchildren before she dies." And Fran stops her sewing and looks at Gracie and says, "How much did she pay you to say that?" And
Hmm.
Gracie's like, "Nothing. What do I need? Knock wood. I live in a beautiful mansion, and thanks God I've got my health."
Yep. And she says it like that.
Yeah, except she does it a little better than I do because she's a trained actress. I'm not. Um, but Fran says to Val, "Oh, can you believe Ma would lay guilt on a little girl just to get what she wants? I wanted kids so I could do that too." And Val's like, "Having kids is hard work. I wouldn't know where to begin." And Fran's like, "How about by getting a date?" Which seems like a good place to start on having a kid. Um,
Mhm.
Although, as we saw, Fran did consider getting a sperm donor, so maybe not necessary. Anyway, so Maxwell walks through, and he's on his way out. He's getting ready to go to lunch. He's having lunch with his friend, Mr. Wilder, who Niles provides the context that Mr. Wilder is getting divorced a second time. He married a beautiful blonde chorus girl, and his poor children were so attached to her. And Maxwell's clearly not thrilled that Niles has been eavesdropping and comments, "Have you been disinfecting the extension phone again, Niles?" And Niles quickly comes up with, "It's cold and flu season, sir." Well, Maxwell has been tipped off, so he explains more about the situation, that the whole thing's a bloody mess. And he says, "I tell you, I'm not going to remarry until the children are grown and out of the house." Well, that catches Fran, Val, and Niles' attention. And Fran
Mhm.
says, "Well, wait a minute. That could be like 10 years. I mean, what if you met the right girl? You think she's going to wait all that time to settle down and start a family?" And Maxwell says, "If she's the right person, she'll understand." And Fran deadpan says, "No, she won't." Um, so then we hear a car horn, and that must be Mr. Wilder. And Niles adds further intel that Mr. Wilder bought a brand new Bentley to hide some of the money from his soon-to-be ex-wife's divorce lawyer. And Maxwell looks back at him, and Niles says, "Bundle up, sir. There's only so much I can do," as he wipes the phone off. Um, and so Fran, is talking to Val, and she says, "I can't believe I basically have to spend the whole afternoon interviewing French tutors for Brighton." "Well, what happened to the one Mr. Sheffield liked, Nanette?" And Fran's like, "No, no. I'll tell you, it's a good thing Mr. Sheffield put me in charge of this, because unlike a man, I will hire a tutor based solely on their academic credentials." Meanwhile, the
Mhm.
doorbell has rung, and Fran's going to answer the door. She opens the door, and there's this very handsome man who says, Bonjour. And Fran says, You're hired.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So,
And I don't have anything to add.
excellent.
So
Would you like to
go.
take us
Yeah.
into the kitchen?
Yeah. So Fran and Niles are there, and Niles, of course, is kind of getting together a little tray or something. Um, it's 85 degrees, or I have that written in my notes.
Yes.
Um, and then Fran is kind of peeking through the swinging door. And again, right now, the layout of the house is that the swinging door looks in to the dining room.
Mm-hmm.
And, she's telling Niles she's just looking, at the tutor's credentials. Well,
Yep.
of course, at that point, the tutor is taking off his jacket because, again, it's 85
Mm-hmm.
degrees. And to which Fran is like, viva la France.
Exactly.
And then so I okay, I'm not gonna have a correct accent on this.
Oh,
Um
I've
but
already made the decision that I am not going to try a French accent because I will end up offending all of our many, many French speaking listeners.
yeah. But to suffice it to say, she's going to be taking in the croissant. and
Yep.
and Niles is like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but you need more nasal.
Mm-hmm.
Say it more nasal. And so of course, but she's like, well, I'm an American. But anyway, she takes the tray, she goes into the dining room. Hello. And of course, like the entire immediately the tutor has put on his charm, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're seashary and
So he's trying to
he
help Brighton, right? And
yeah,
Brighton is not a quick study.
no, no, no. And in fact, like there's a comment that he's murdering the language.
Yep.
And and again, at some point, the tutor says, you need to say it with more like, je t'adore, and he says it a couple times. He looks at Fran and says it. And Fran's like, honey, I understand that. Shut the door.
Yep.
And Brighton gets up and actually does shut the door.
Yep.
He looks put out doing it. Um, and then is it Fran who then says derriere?
Yeah, but Brighton looks put out because it's a Saturday and he's stuck inside learning French. And that's when Fran comments about his derriere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And well, and of course, like I said, the tutor Philippe putting on the charm, talking about the beautiful nanny, and that, you know, make causes Fran to switch from, telling Brighton to, despite it being a Saturday to sit down and study, to being like, recess. And I think she rings
Mm-hmm.
like a bell or
She
something.
does.
I don't know why a bell is there in the first place, but she rings it and it's recess time. So Brighton leaves, so it's just the tutor and Fran. And the tutor makes some type of comment comparing Fran to Coden
No,
and
to Rodin.
Rodin. But she hears Rodan,
Yep.
the pterodactyl who terrorized Tokyo. I've been
Mm-hmm.
called worse.
I pause right there. What could possibly be worse than a pterodactyl that attacked a city?
I don't know,
Okay,
but
just saying.
apparently she's had it. So, and again, Tutor's putting on all of the charm, right?
Oh
He
yeah.
mentions that, she's single. Well, in his country, a girl like her would already have a family or be breaking up one.
Mm-hmm.
You're so sweet. What?
Again, yeah, exactly.
And then so Philippe further like goes on to ask, if she wants to have dinner with him tonight. And she says, she already has plans, but hold on a minute, I'll go see if I can change them. And so she like quickly kind of pops into the kitchen and tells Niles, cover up the holes in the lean cuisine and put it back in the freezer.
Yep.
And of course, she's ready to have dinner with Philippe. Is there anything you'd like to add to that scene?
Um, I just want to. So after Fran tells Niles to cover the holes of the lean cuisine with some tape and shove it back in the freezer, she rushes back through the swinging door, and she pauses and she like poses in the door frame, and the swinging door hits her in the behind,
Uh-huh.
breaking
Yep.
her pose, shall we say?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
it's just funny. That's why I wanted to mention it.
Yep.
All right, so we're now in the living room, and Fran is putting on the final touches for her date. And Maggie is sitting on the couch and comments, "Oh, Fran, you look so pretty. I've never seen you in that dress." And Fran's like, "Oh, sure you have, honey. This is the dress I always pull out when my relationships start to get a little serious." I think this is a time for us to talk about Fran's dress. Do you?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It's one
So,
we have not seen before.
which is exactly what Maggie says, to which Fran says, "You made your point, honey." So it is a sleeveless dress. It has a sweetheart neckline. It's black, it's short. It has a bow across the chest, and then the bottom part of the ribbon, so like if it's a bow with a ribbon, the ribbon then goes in like an upside down V toward back towards her hips and like ties in I think another bow on the back of the dress.
But the ribbon is like kind of like maybe kind of think of a ladybug.
Yeah, I mean, so it's a red and black dress, so that makes sense. Like kind of like the wings, I guess.
Because it's like dotted.
Yeah, a little bit.
So yeah. I just
Uh,
thought ladybug when I saw it.
so I did not think Ladybug until you just said that, and now that I'm looking at it with the like front, it's sort of like the upside down V, the way it hugs her waist. They look like wings, like ladybug wings.
Yeah.
Um, and she has her hair half up, half down. I think she's wearing black heels, so she looks very nice. I personally would be concerned that that dress is going to fall, which we actually see her fixing it multiple times in this scene.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we'll go back to the scene now. So Philippe arrives and Brighton answers the door, and Philippe greets him in French, bonsoir, Brighton, and kisses him on both cheeks. And Brighton is clearly made uncomfortable by this. And he says, "He's French. It's cool, isn't it?" And Maggie, of course, is looking at Philippe and says to Fran, Fran, maybe I should say hello to Philippe. I mean, I don't want to be rude." And Fran's like, "No, sweetie, this is Brighton's tutor. But aren't you failing Italian?" "No." "Well, don't you think you should be?" And Maggie gets that goofy teenage grin on. Yeah. Um, so now finally Fran and Philippe are able to greet each other. "Bonsoir, Philippe." And he says to her, "Did you study your French last night?" And she asks him, "Well, how's this?" And she gives him a very deep, passionate kiss. "Did I pass the oral exam?"
Mm-hmm.
And they kiss again just as Maxwell walks in, who snarkily comments, Philippe, I see you're exposing my nanny to your native tongue." And
Mm-hmm.
Fran is a little embarrassed, I think.
Really?
Well, I mean, at Maxwell coming in and catching her doing that, she like fixes her dress and kind of steps away from Philippe. And she says something like, "Oh, Mr. Sheffield, I'm sorry. I guess I have no French resistance."
Mm-hmm.
And Maxwell says, "Well, neither do the French. They've surrendered in every war they've ever been in." And
Mm-hmm.
Philippe is like, "Well, that's because we are lovers, not fighters. I believe your employer is jealous, huh?" And Maxwell's like, "It's fine. I believe your date is presumptuous." And uh, Philippe definitely escalates it by saying, "The one thing a Frenchman can spot a mile away is a cuckold." And Max was like, "Oh, really? Now you see, I would have thought that would have been a plate of stinky cheese." And anyway, so they continue insulting each other, and Philippe calls him a limey, and Maxwell calls him a frog. And
Uh-huh.
then Philippe really crosses a line and says, "The only good thing to come out of your country is Andrew Lloyd Webber." And Maxwell's like, "All right, that does it." And the two of them have been like closing in on each other with Fran in between, and Fran's like, "Hey, hey, hey," and she's like trapped between them, kind of, and she
Yeah.
looks at one, she looks at the other, and she makes this comment, I had a dream like this once.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
she kind of
definitely a lot of statements in the scene that we would not have gotten as children.
correct, correct, correct. Um, do you want to add anything?
No.
Okay, would you like to take us to the office?
Yes. So we're in Maxwell's office. He's at his desk, of course. Niles is there. And as is Cece.
Yes.
And Maxwell is obviously very annoyed and jealous. And he's again talking about, those Frenchmen. Why are there so many foreigners in this country? Again, the irony being like he's foreign as well.
Uh-huh.
Um, because again, Niles is like crumpets, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Hands him like the tray. Um, and just side note, didn't care about the xenophobia, but I understand the humor in this particular the irony. But um, anyway,
Fair.
Cece is like, oh, Maxwell, don't be selfish. The French love a fine wine. Well, now he can listen to one 24 hours a day.
And she
And
says it exactly like that.
yeah, like very nasally, like obviously imitating Fran.
Yep.
She laughs like she thinks she's hilarious, right? And of course, is it Niles who says no sour grapes?
Yes. Yes,
And
he does.
and he also then tells her, she should go to India. She would be sacred there. Again, not great. Um, but anyway, so not or like I said, Maxwell's obviously just very jealous. And he's trying to, get some validation, I guess, from Niles. Um, and uh I don't know, like
So yeah,
Niles,
so
what does
so
he say to Niles? I have what Niles says to him.
yeah, so Maxwell says, "Why is she throwing herself at him
Ah,
anyway?
yes.
I mean, it's not like she's never seen a good-looking man before. I've been known to turn a few heads in my time, right, Niles?"
Uh-huh. And Niles goes, just again, in his classic Niles dry tone, you're a brick. House. Mighty, mighty.
Exactly.
um, and anyway, so they are talking a little more.
So
Um,
yeah, so what happens is Niles says, "But perhaps Miss Fine has reached a point in her life where she
oh,
wants a
she's
little
feeling a
more."
little bit more. Yeah.
And
Something
Maxwell
extra.
asks, "What do you
Oh,
mean?"
yeah, something extra. What? And Fran comes in. He proposed.
Exactly.
Shut the door. Shut the door. And oh my goodness, Maxwell. Oh, how can the man possibly want to marry you? Pardon moi? And, he's put his foot in his mouth, but he tries to explain. He barely even knows you. And Fran's like, well, some people just know what they want. Do points, do
Carrots.
carrots.
Do
Um,
is two in French.
yes, yes. And I have bingo
Yeah,
after.
so he says to her, "Just what exactly are you saying?" And goes back to him, "What are you saying?" And he says, "I'm not saying anything." And that's when
Bingo.
she says, "Bingo." Au revoir.
Au revoir. Okay, yes. So, yes, so this is where we find out that Philippe has proposed and Maxwell is jealous.
Oh yeah,
Would you like to take us to the kitchen
I
unless
would
you have
love
something you'd
to.
like to add?
I would love to go to the kitchen. Um, so we're in the kitchen and Sylvia's coming in through the side door. What's the big news? You couldn't tell me over the phone. And Fran makes a big show of taking her left hand and sticking it under her mother's nose. Happy Mother's Day. And Sylvia's like, ah, because she sees the engagement ring. Are you pregnant? No. Ah! I can't believe that Mr. Sheffield finally proposed to you. Oh no, Ma, it's not Mr. Sheffield. It's Philippe, the guy I've been seeing. Someone proposed to you without even meeting your mother? Gee, says Fran. I never made that connection before. Which, side note, I'm with Sylvia on this. That's weird.
Uh-huh.
Um, anyway, but so Sylvia's like, darling, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. And Fran's like, oh Ma, you're gonna love Philippe. He's the most passionate, sensuous man I've ever met. You should see him eat a piece of fruit, tearing it apart like an animal, juice dribbling down his chin, wiping it away with his sleeve. I'll tell you, he reminds me a lot of Daddy. And Sylvia gives her some pretty good advice, which is, sweetheart, don't go by the sex. Don't go by the looks. I made that mistake with your father. The man that I let my daughter marry has to live up to my standards. And who should walk in at that point but Philippe? Bonjour, chérie. And Sylvia takes one look at him and reacts, my son! And she gets up
Yeah.
to hug him. Um, and so Fran makes the introductions, warning her mother, Ma, don't scare him.
Mm-hmm.
And Sylvia's like, what? Like, I don't know how to talk to a person from a foreign country. She turns back to Philippe. Hello, I'm Sylvia Fine. Thank you for your lovely statue. We put it in the harbor so everyone could see it. And she's like mimicking it out. She's pretending to be the Statue of
Yeah,
Liberty.
she has her arm up and everything.
Yeah. But then she like brings it down to like signify the harbor that everyone can see it. And then she goes back to being the Statue of Liberty. Um, and Fran's like, that's good, Ma. Now, and she does very exaggerate in the same way that she does tapping her wrist. It's time to take your L-Dopa, and makes a crazy sign next to her ear.
Mm-hmm.
And well, Maxwell makes the mistake of walking in at that point. Hello,
Yep.
Sylvia. How are you? And Sylvia's like, not kicking myself like someone else in this room must be.
Ooh.
Exactly. Um, and so anyway, she goes back to ignoring Maxwell, and Sylvia focuses back on Philippe. So Philippe, now that we're mishpucha family, of course the joke is every time she says mishpucha, she spits in his eye. We have so much to talk about. Morty and I will pay for the entire wedding. Your side will just pay for the food. But don't worry, the Fines are not big eaters. And she picks up a giant, looks like a cinnamon roll to me.
Yeah, because
And
the entire time she's saying that, Fran has been unloading a bunch of pastries onto like a dish.
exactly. And so Sylvia takes it and walks out of the room, leaving Fran and the two men in her life in the kitchen. And Maxwell says, congratulations, Philippe. And Philippe says, merci, Maxwell. Maxwell snarkily calls him a snail eater, to which Philippe responds, your queen looks like a man. And Fran's like, are you two at it again? This is getting ridiculous. She then comments to Maxwell, he got you last. Um, and so Philippe says to Fran that, Cherie, we must get ready for the interview for our green card. And Maxwell clasps onto that. Philippe, could you perhaps clear this up for me? If you marry Miss Fine, you get to stay in this country. Is that right? And Philippe's like, you insult me, sir. I wanted to take her to France to live in my brother's chateau, but she insisted on remaining here to take care of your children. That's right, says Fran. The chateau part was conveniently left out of the conversation, but that's right. And she turns to her fiance. Now, about Christmas time, does your brother like mishpacha around? And yeah. Um,
Yep.
is there anything you want to add, or would you like to take us to the INS interview?
Yes. So the INS interview is actually taking place in the living room in the
Yep.
Sheffield home. And the INS lady is, of course, just, wanting to ensure that this is not just a marriage of convenience. And Fran is like, oh, well, it is convenient for me, though, because if I didn't find anyone, I was about to hang myself. So, oh,
Pretty much,
a
yeah.
little morbid, but yeah. And so the lady starts asking questions like, how long have you known each other? And Philippe is very good at sidestepping questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he doesn't remember. He got lost in her eyes, and
She spoke with a cute little accent, and He was hers, body and soul.
Yes. Thank God.
Thank
And
God love is not only blind, it's deaf too.
yes, that's what Fran says. And she asks, "Well, how old is she?" 26. And the lady kind of gives a look, and Fran's like, "It's a rough conversion from the metric system."
Move on, yeah.
Yeah. What's her favorite food? We dine on love. And I'm all ready for like, or
No,
let's get this
so
going.
no, so he
Let's
says, so Philippe
Yeah,
says,
yeah, it's Fran who says that, let's get this going because ready for dessert, right?
right, but before that, he says, we dine on love, but I never get enough. I'm always hungry for more.
Ah, yes. And yeah, and
You have to
then
you have to get the full
yeah, he's
performance.
very much a smooth talker,
Mhm.
although like for us it's cheesy too, but
Mhm.
like the lady, the interviewer is kind of falling under his spell
Oh
because
yeah.
the next question is she the only American woman you'd marry? And she kind of catches herself in that kind of slip. And Philippe, of course, explains. Yeah, it's her because they were caught in an explosion of love.
The moment our two souls met, it was an explosion of love. Yes.
Yes. And of course, I counted this all together
I did
just
too.
quick, but we cut to Maxwell is out in the hallway. He had been listening in, and and at having heard that, he's like, "What utter rot!" And Niles, of course, is there, and Maxwell mimics like very extravagant, like exaggerated, like the moment our two souls met, an explosion of love, and he wants to retch. It's too flowery, and Niles is like, ah, yes, compared to Miss Fine.
Mhm.
So and and anyway, we cut back to the living room, and I believe it's like, is it Philippe who says, "No more, please, I'm spent,"
Yes.
or something like that? And he like walks off. And then the lady interviewer, who has again been caught in his spell, like pulls out a cigarette. Um, and like she and Fran both appear as if they just had a sexual experience with, like that kind of that trope of smoking after.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Fran doesn't smoke, but she pops a chocolate into her mouth.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to take us into the kitchen.
Yes.
So Cece's in the kitchen, and Philippe walks in, and he greets her, "Hello, Kaka." And
And the
Cece,
look on her face.
exactly. Cece's just like, "What?" And he's like, "Is that not what Cece stands for? This is what the butler told me." And he like comes over to her, and she's like standing behind the like island in the center of the
Mhm.
kitchen. And she tells him, Philippe, you've made me the happiest woman on earth. He takes her left hand and asks, and how have I done that, Monsieur? And he kisses the top of her hand. And Cece explains, by taking Nanny Fine off my hands. But Philippe has not stopped at just kissing her hand. He
Mhm.
kisses her arm and her shoulder. He's like kissing up her arm as she's like saying the sentence, by taking Nanny Fine off my hands, arms, shoulders.
Yep.
And she's very confused what's happening.
Yes.
Um, and he says to her, your skin is like white chocolate, Cherie. And she's like, aren't you engaged to Nanny Fine? Oui. And you think I would condone this type of scandal with me? Oui. Monsieur, I am deeply offended. Meanwhile, she has now lifted her right arm up so that he can continue kissing across her arm,
Yes.
her arm span.
Uh-huh.
And again, she asks, do you and you think I would condone this type of scandal with me? Oui. Monsieur, I am deeply offended. She grabs him, kisses him, pushes him away. Stop it.
Uh-huh. But she says it kind of like stop it. Like, and it kind of like
Don't
not
stop it.
emotional. Yeah, it's like, stop it.
Yeah. She like doesn't know what to make of this, which is fair. Um,
Mhm.
and so I think he leaves, and we see Niles is in the the back door of the kitchen, and he's like spraying like window cleaner on the window. And he
Mhm.
comes in and he says, "Did
Oh my
Kaka do a
god.
no-no in the kitchen?"
Yes, because he looks scandalized when he's cleaning the glass
Yes.
panel on the
Yes.
door.
And so he tells her that he tells Cece that she's gonna have to clean it up. And Cece plays it cool. What do you mean? Well, someone's got to tell Miss Fine that she's marrying a cad. I could never break her heart like that. I can, says Cece, but I won't. Destroy Nanny Fine's relationship and be stuck with her forever? You've been inhaling a little too much easy off, Beulah. And Niles is like, big mistake. If you told, it would make you so attractive to Mr. Sheffield. How? Well, a handsome man came on to you. Remember, boys never want a toy until another boy wants to play with it. I'm listening. Besides, Philippe is a philanderer. The marriage will never last. When Miss Fine is devastated, whose strong British arms will be there to comfort and Maxwell? She's heard enough. She needs to tell him what happened.
Mhm.
Do you want to add anything, or would you like to take us to the living room?
Yeah, I kind of, for some reason, I didn't put a mark there, so I don't know if I considered it one or not. But you're right. She leaves with Maxwell, and we have this conversation going on in the living room. Fran's there with Philippe, um, about whether for the bridesmaids' dresses it should be fuchsia or lime green. And Philippe makes the comment that no woman ever looks good in lime green. So again, Fran's like, okay, lime green. 'Cause
I,
she
I
doesn't
have
want her bridesmaids to show her up on her wedding, right?
Right. But I have to interject. As someone who is currently wearing lime green, he is wrong. Number one. Number two, we have seen Fran wear lime green on multiple occasions, and she's looked fantastic.
She's
So
also worn fuchsia.
she has. I'm just saying his sense of style is
Do
wrong.
you think you would pick lime green though for your
Oh
bridesmaid
yeah.
dress?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I've thought about it, but I've been told by friends that I am not allowed to do that.
And of course, um, again, Philippe says, "J'adore," and Fran's like, all right, this man is obsessed with shutting the door, because she has gotten up to shut the door. And Maxwell comes in with like Cece and Niles in the wake, and he goes, Miss Fine, your French fiance Philippe's a philanderer. And she's like, say that 5 times fast.
Mm-hmm.
And Maxwell explains he made a pass at Miss Babcock. And Cece, I can't get the tone right because it's not in her usual voice, but she says, another man wanted me, Cece Babcock, for his love toy.
Exactly.
Out loud.
It's like
She seems
she's
kind of like, another person wanted me. Like she's kind of bragging.
it's not even that she's bragging, but she's also sort of sounding like a know-it-all, like it's a weird tone for her.
Yes, it's like a very out of character tone, like how she's saying it. But yeah.
Exactly.
So, but Fran think is like, how dare you make this, up, to try to break us, because she doesn't believe it. But Philippe right away is like, it's true. And Cece's like, I was appalled. He called me white chocolate. And Fran gasps, you called me Reese's Piece. And Philippe's like just like confused though. He's like, "What? I'm a Frenchman. Where I come from, I love all the women." And and Fran's like, "Oh, well, like what would you do then if I love all men?" And
I
he's
guess
like,
it wouldn't bother you.
"Yeah." And he's like he kind of was like, no. And then she's like, so it won't bother you when I do this. And she grabs Maxwell and kisses him.
Yup.
And Philippe kind of just goes, kissing an English man is like kissing your mother. And then Maxwell
Mm-hmm.
goes, then what about this? And Maxwell sweeps Fran into his arms and kisses her.
Yes.
Very, again, these are passionate kisses. And uh this is crossing line. This is no good.
Exactly.
Yes. And Cece in the meantime is again behind them and she's kind of like, you made your point, trying to
Mm-hmm.
break them up. And again though, Philippe's still trying to like justify himself and he's saying in France, men are like bees, they need to pollinate, every flower. And Fran's like, oh, you need to be easy with the stinger. In America, we have what's called a bobbit bee.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like kind of escorting Philippe out at this point, right?
Yep.
She gets him across the threshold. Philippe, though, still just like kind of pleading with her, but Cherie, je t'adore. And she goes, my pleasure, and slams the door in his face.
Mm-hmm.
And she immediately goes into the strong arms of Maxwell. Oh, Mr. Sheffield. Oh, Miss Fine, there. And in an attempt to cheer her up, he suggests, why don't I take you out for a nice supper? And she's like, oh, I couldn't eat anything. Maybe a small lobster and
Mm-hmm.
a twice baked potato. And so they're obviously, Fran and Maxwell are going off to have supper. And Cece just says to Niles, why do I listen to you? I just drove her straight into his arms. And and Niles points out, plans don't always go the way you want them to. Cheers, caca.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the episode.
That is the episode. Um,
Anything else you wanted to add though in that last scene?
nope. Nope.
We got 2 kisses, Debbie.
I know. I was waiting for you to get excited.
But yeah, so that is the episode. Before we jump into our shticks, I
Mm-hmm.
did want to just bring up how it was funny for me watching this because, as mentioned in a previous episode, the one where Emily guest starred on our show, I told the story of how when I studied abroad, I also received a proposal because the guy wanted a green card.
Mm-hmm.
So that happens.
And that guy didn't say to you that the moment our souls met, they met an explosion of
Oh
love.
no, he was at least very straightforward. He wanted to come to America and become a police officer. So I was just like, I don't know you.
That is the
No,
appropriate
thank you.
response. No,
No,
thank
thank
you. I
you.
don't know you.
So yeah.
Um,
Even though
so
his friend was trying to convince me by saying we could have 2 children. And I'm like, what? I don't know
yeah,
you.
yeah, because I want to have a baby with someone I don't know.
And I'm in
Cool.
college. Like what? Anyway.
So I want to ask you before we get into the shticks, did you think that Philippe and Fran had better chemistry than Gary and Fran last week?
So a little better, but still very, very shallow. Like I didn't for 1 minute believe they were I knew what Philippe was up to. Um, and it just felt very shallow, right? There wasn't much character building or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Very whirlwind.
Oh
And
yeah,
again, I'd be curious as to what the timeline was in this episode. Uh,
not very long, but also long enough for them to actually get an appointment with INS.
yes.
So
Yeah. So yeah. What about you? What did you think in terms of the chemistry?
I thought they definitely had better chemistry since we see them, kiss and things like that
Yeah.
that we didn't see with Gary. Because I mean, with Gary, they hugged awkwardly in the last
Yeah.
scene he's in, and needless to say, Philippe does not do that with Fran.
Yep.
Instead,
Nope.
she has an oral exam to make
Yes.
sure she practiced her French the night before.
Yep.
sigh.
So yeah, better chemistry, but shallow in my opinion.
Yeah,
So
fair.
yeah. Anything else you want to talk about before we jump into favorite fashion?
No, I'm happy to talk fashion if you are.
Okay. I don't know if you noticed, there's a lot of black and white, I feel
There
like,
was.
in this episode.
Did you have a favorite black and white outfit?
Um
So for our listeners who might not have seen this recently, I think there are at least three black and white outfits that Fran wears. The
mhm,
first is um one of her like standard, black turtleneck. I think she has black tights, but the dress is black and white color blot. So like the front part, like a little past her waist, I think is white, and then there's a black cutout, and then like it's black and white like that, kind of like a funny checkerboard, but like way bigger. Then there's also I think she wears a short black skirt and then a black and white jacket that does actually have a checkerboard on it with like properly proportioned black and white boxes. And then finally, I think in the last scene, she's wearing, I think, also a black skirt and then a white, I guess, satiny uh, jacket that has black trim.
mhm. I don't know. Did you have a favorite of the three?
I think it's the last one. I think I like that the best because to
Yeah.
me, it's reminiscent of the black and white jacket she wears in the episode The Two Mrs. Sheffields,
Mhm.
where Maxwell goes to her mother's house and she greets him with, "Hello, darling." And she has that they have that great exchange about, she says to him, he calls her Miss Fine. She says, "Oh, you want to play that game, do you? All right, you're the boss and I'm the nanny. You give me a raise and I'll give you one." He's like, "Miss Fine, we're on your mother's couch. We're in your mother's house, so the couch has protection." To me, it's just reminiscent of what she wears in that
Uh-huh.
episode, and I love that episode, so that's why
Yeah.
I like the third one.
Nice. And was there, aside from the black and white, was there any other like outfit that caught your attention or
Well, I
anything?
mean, I think we didn't actually talk other than describing what she wore, her fabulous dress for when her relationships start to get a little serious. What do you
Hmm.
actually think of it? Would you
Again,
wear it?
um, I personally wouldn't, just because, like you said, she had to kind of fiddle with it a bit.
Mm,
Um, but again, it made me think of a ladybug, which is not necessarily a bad thing. but,
right, ladybugs are lucky.
but that's like all I thought of when I saw that dress was ladybug. Would
Uh,
you wear it?
no, because I mean, there was a time and a place in my life where I thought, "Oh, being an adult means I get to wear a tube top or, strapless dress," and now I'm an older adult, and I'm just like, "No, thank you. I would like my clothing to stay put."
Hmm.
Like, I don't wanna be futzing with it all night.
Yeah. Yep. Anything else?
The, um, other the other thing she wore when she went shopping, for the Mother's Day present, it was a very, very colorful, very, very loud blazer that kind of looked like it was to me, it looked like it was a compilation of, like, newspapers and wrappers. I don't know, I don't think that's fair to the designer, but that's what it looked like to me, and it matched the reusable bag she was carrying.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah. And again, I obviously mistook what she bought for her mother for lunch.
Yeah, um, yeah. Do
Yeah.
you I also think we should talk about what Cece wore, um,
Sure.
in this episode, because I liked what she wore in both scenes that we see her.
Hmm.
In the office scene, she's wearing, I think it's a blue collared shirt that looks of a similar fabric to the fabric that, Fran's Mother's Day present is. Um, and she has a vest, but and I thought that was fine, but I liked what she was wearing when Philippe hit on her.
Yeah.
She's wearing like a long navy skirt, and then over it she has a short sleeved button down, but not collared. There's a small V-neck shirt that's like a dusty blue. I thought that was a great look on her.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. And again, if you haven't watched this episode in a while, I think it's worth just at least like watching the scene to see her facial expressions throughout that
yeah,
that encounter. But yeah, we ready for some notable New Yorkers?
I am if you are.
Okay. I don't know if you counted green card as part of.
I didn't, but I should have.
Yeah, let's title of the episode. Again, a green card is a means by which, foreigners can stay in the United States with the legal status, right?
It's
Uh,
a lawful permanent residence,
yes.
pre-
Like, so
lawful
not,
permanent resident status.
yes. But yeah, so I feel like compared to some previous episodes, I don't think we got as many
No,
references in this one. Again, there's a lot of French being thrown around. But in terms of actual referencing to like things, um, again, there's just a lot of French, Vive la France, like all that kind of stuff. Um, so I'm like looking through here. What's the first reference you have, Debbie?
IKEA.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
Um,
that's where with the Swedish meatballs, like that's
yes.
where you learn.
So according to our friends at IKEA.com, IKEA is a global home furnishing brand that brings affordability, design, and comfort to people all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have Bentley,
Yes.
the luxury car company that was founded in 1919, according to our friends at BentleyMotors.com.
Mm-hmm. And then I was trying to see there. Of course, we have the ubiquitous reference to Andrew Lloyd Webber,
Oh yeah,
but prior to that, in the exchange between um, Maxwell and Philippe, they say a couple of things. For instance, Maxwell calls, no, sorry, Philippe calls Maxwell a limey. And I like personally hadn't really heard, I've heard the second one in terms of um, like French being called frogs before. Like I've heard that, but I didn't know limey was um, one thing, but apparently it is a derogatory name for a British person.
apparently.
So, but then we get that Andrew Lloyd Webber reference, and again, that really is a low blow for to say to Maxwell.
Oh yeah. Actually, even before that, there's the reference to Rodin,
Oh yes, yes.
Auguste Rodin, a French sculptor who is known as the founder of modern sculpture, and that's according to our friends at Wikipedia. Rodin, which we've already talked about, a fictional monster who was featured in the Godzilla franchise, also according to
Mm-hmm.
our friends at Wikipedia. Uh, French Resistance.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe so that is a reference to France's capitulation to the Nazis in World War II and the puppet regime that was installed in Vichy. But there actually was a French resistance. Um, and those were the organizations and individuals who fought the Nazi occupation from France and in France and outside of France, and that includes the American Virginia Hall, whose story is told in the book A Woman of No Importance by Sonia Purnell, which I highly recommend because it's a great book.
Mm-hmm. There's then Niles makes that crack uh, to Cece about how she should go to India because she'd be sacred there.
Yep.
And so he is calling her a cow, right?
Yes,
Um,
that was my understanding.
yeah. And whenever Maxwell is fishing for compliments from Niles, Niles calls him he says you're a brick house. And brick house is a song. So I
So
comment.
according to our friends at genius.com, you're right, it's a song by the Commodores. Um, do you know the etymology of the expression built like a brick house?
Like what my brain goes through is it goes to is the Three Little Pigs, but no.
That is not it, but I
Yeah,
like
I
your
figured
I
as
like your
much.
thinking. So apparently, according to our friends at genius.com, um, apparently the original expression was built like a brick. I'm not going to say the word house. Think outhouse, but more vulgar, starting with an S. Um, we run a clean podcast here, so I'm not gonna say it
Okay.
anyway.
So
But
so I s- okay. So you heard you're built like a brick house? Because I heard you're a brick house.
yeah, no, he
Y-
did. Niles did say your brick house, mighty mighty, which is
Yes,
from the Commodore song. But
yes.
the expression "built like a brick house" comes from "built like a brick blank house," which
Uh,
originally was not a complimentary term.
yeah.
Um,
But what's funny is if you just say you're a brick, that is a complimentary term because it means like you're a very helpful and kind person who can be trusted.
oh, interesting. I've never heard that. I would have assumed that was also an insult.
Yeah. Well, this is according to the internet. Um, Now the other way though, because that was the first one. So I guess there is a negative connotation in saying that a person is thick-headed or dense, like a brick,
Right.
which I think is probably Niles's intent versus the positive meaning.
I thought Niles was just quoting the song, but I thought
I
it
think
was
he was doing both because there's a pause before he says house. I don't know. It Listeners, let us know what you think is going on.
right. And then the other thing I want to comment on, when I tried to go to our friends at Google to find the history of Brick House Mighty Mighty, I found a lot of results talking about different types of cigars called Brick House Mighty Mighty.
Oh, interesting.
So wanted to share that too.
Yeah. Um, so do you like again they mentioned the INS
Yeah.
as well. And is that still like the correct?
I think I think it is now the US Citizenship and Immigration Services.
Okay.
I think it's now USCIS. But it might be part of.
Yeah, it merged. Okay, it was Immigration and Naturalization Service. It's a former U.S. agency merged into DHS.
There you go.
Okay, because I was like, I don't think that is, still the name.
Right.
Well,
Um the Statue of Liberty.
yeah.
That is a gift that the United States received from France
Yep.
that we did place in the harbor so everyone could see it.
Uh-huh.
And she does hold a book in one arm and a torch in the other, kind of like Sylvia was mimicking.
Yes. And then you know what Niles said Cece's name is?
Kaka.
Kaka. Yeah. And you know what that means, right?
Poop.
Yep. Yep. Kaka doing no in the kitchen.
It's a great line.
Yeah. And then Cece's kind of again like easy off.
You've inhaled too much Easy Off Beulah.
Yes.
So Easy Off, according to our friends at easyoff.us, is an oven cleaner. It's a type of oven cleaner. Beulah is a reference to Beulah Brown, a fictional television and radio character who was employed as a housekeeper and cook. The character was played by the first Black woman to star in a network radio program. On television, Beulah was known as the Queen of the Kitchen, and she had the ability to solve many problems that her employers were unable to. All that is according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Yeah. So then I have whenever Fran makes the comment about how in America there's the Bobbit bee, my assumption is that is a reference to Lorena Bobbitt.
Uh huh. Yeah. I looked to see if Bobbit B itself was something, because like I'm familiar with Bobbit, but not
Yes.
B. So yes, Bobbit is a reference to John and Lorena Bobbitt, an American married couple whose relationship was the subject of multiple news and tabloid stories after Lorena cut off her husband's penis while he was asleep in 1993. For those
Hmm.
who are concerned, the penis was later reattached and he became a porn star. And that's according to our friends at Wikipedia.
Yes. Did you have anything else?
I did. L-Dopa. Fran
Uh-huh.
makes the comment to her mother, like, it's time for you to take your L-Dopa. That is a reference to levodopa, which is an amino acid precursor to dopamine, norepinephrine, and epinephrine. That's according to our friends at Wikipedia. There's reference to Queen Elizabeth, the now late Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth.
Hmm.
And then I'm out. She was the Queen of England, in case that was unclear, for a very, very long time. All right, I'm out.
Awesome. I'm out. So let's go to Yoshikap.
So, compared to last week, there really isn't that much here. First, as everyone already knows, I have to say it, lobsters are not kosher. They are trafe. They are sea creatures that do not have fins or scales. Therefore, they are not kosher. They are not fit for consumption. And then the only other term was mishpucha, which means family. So
Hmm.
that's it.
Yep.
Very short.
Yeah, especially compared to last week.
Exactly. Oh,
Okay.
oh, oh. Can I
Yeah.
can I actually go back to notable New Yorkers for a sec?
Yeah.
Um, the guy who played Philippe, his name is Paolo Sing. I'm sorry, Paolo, that I'm totally mispronouncing your name. I apologize. Singanti. And according to our friends at IMDb, I learned this just today. He played. This is his second appearance on The Nanny.
Oh, really?
Apparently, he also played Philippe with an F, not a PH, in the episode That's Midlife
Wow.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks.
I didn't. I now have to go back and rewatch that to see if I can figure out who he was. But apparently, it was an uncredited role.
Okay.
So
That's funny.
I just wanted to mention that because I was like, oh, look at that. He was on 2 episodes. Um,
Yeah.
and apparently he got his start on The Nanny because that is his first credit on IMDb. So, by the way, he's Italian, not French.
Hmm.
So he did a good job faking the accent. All right,
Hmm.
sorry,
Yeah.
90s nostalgia.
Yes. So the whole thing about Niles cleaning the extension phone. So like
Yes.
the fact that like Niles could listen in by picking up another phone on the line is
Mm-hmm.
definitely nostalgic. Did you ever try to like listen in to phone calls like that?
No, I was too preoccupied trying to get people to not eavesdrop on my phone calls, namely my little brother.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Old cars.
Yes. There are old cars.
Um, Mr. Wilder having a second marriage and going through a second divorce without having gotten a prenup. That seems very dated to me. More and more
Um,
people are getting prenups.
True, but also there are still people who don't. So I'm sure
But
there's
but like if he's friends with
for
Maxwell
a wealthy
Sheffield,
person, maybe.
bingo.
Mhm.
Bingo. He's friends with Maxwell. Clearly he has money.
Yeah, he
Um
bought a new Bentley.
exactly. So it would have been smart. So
Hmm. Yeah. Again, since this has happened to me, what's not dated is the concept of trying to get married for a green card.
yeah.
But yeah, I feel like again, there's not a ton because like we are this entire episode, we're in the Sheffield home.
Hmm.
It's kind of confined there. So again, my big thing was the telephone. Is there anything else you had in this category?
I mean, not really 90s nostalgia, but really like 3 months ago nostalgia, or a little bit more depending on when you listen to this episode. Queen Elizabeth is no longer the queen. Now we have King Charles, or I shouldn't say we. Britain now
Yes.
has King Charles.
Yes. Yep. So yeah. I
I
feel too, like in terms of like tutoring and all that kind of stuff, there are more apps and other methods of
mhm,
getting like so like they could have gotten someone online or done some type of other instead of having a person come in
true.
like to the house. But yeah,
Oh, what about the fact that Brighton brought his report card home himself? Isn't that
that
all
takes me back.
digitized now?
I don't know.
I mean, you and I would have no way of knowing,
But
but I feel like
I'm sure like yeah, cuz like I mean, I'm sure you just like log in and see the grades, right?
I assume
These days.
so. I mean, I
Yeah.
also imagine they're not putting the grade marking the grades down in pen anymore. I mean, even
Mhm.
when we were in school, the grades were typed up in our report
Well,
cards.
onto like the actual papers. Oh,
Yeah.
well, in terms of the report card,
The
yes.
report card, yeah, not the papers.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah. Now, this week though, we can actually talk about the kiss count.
okay, remind our wonderful listeners, where do we stand before this episode?
Before this episode, we were at 8 because he said that we can't count the dream kiss.
Sorry. Sorry,
So
listeners.
we were at 8. And this episode, we got 2 more. So we are now at 10. Exciting times, guys.
Exciting times is right.
So yeah, that will then take us to future fun.
So on the note of kiss count, we will be adding to the kiss count not next week, but the following week. So
Ooh.
something to look forward to. Cannot wait, guys. All right. So next week, uh, actually, no, I'll save that. A more minor, a more minor future fun. Gloria Gifford, she is the actress who plays the INS officer in this episode. She will be back next season as the district attorney in the episode Samson He Denied Her. That is the episode in which both Fran and Cece serve on a jury together. Fun times for everyone, as you can imagine. Okay, so next week, Fran and the family take a cruise because her psychic told her that she was going to dance on water with the man of her dreams. So
Mm.
we have something to look forward to there. Um, this is not the worst relationship Fran has. Next season, I believe, we will actually see her go on a date and imagine a whole future with a man who turns out to be her cousin. So
Wow.
there's there's that.
Awkward. Yeah.
Yeah, especially when they learn that they're cousins. Um, so there's that. And then finally, for those who have seen the series before, you will know what I'm talking about when I say in 2 weeks, we are going to see the episode A Pup in Paris. Maxwell goes to Paris and Fran ends up tagging along as an unwitting stowaway, leading to some adventurous times in Paris.
So she does get the Paris trip.
She does. She does. And it's on Cece Babcock's credit card.
Nice.
They end up sharing a hotel room. It's because I mean Cece comments about how she keeps trying Maxwell's room and can't get him, and Niles says, "Oh, try Miss Fine's room," and gives her the number, and she's like, "That's Maxwell's room," and he's like, "I know, isn't that funny?"
Oh, Niles.
So anyway, we have some fun ahead, and I look forward to exploring it with you.
Okay. So this week, you get to go first with the episode rating.
So, as our wonderful listeners know, we rate each episode from 1 to 5 lipsticks, with 5 being the best, 1 being the worst. I'm giving this a 5. I'm continuing my streak of multiple weeks. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 weeks in a row, giving it a 5.
Wow.
In case you can't tell, I really like season 3. Um, I'm giving it a 5 for a couple different reasons. One, I think it's funny. 2, I love that Maxwell is starting to have to deal with his feelings. I mean, doesn't do a good job of it, but they're there. Um, Fran pointing, Fran pushing the envelope with him. I love that. I thought the whole scenario with Sylvia meeting her future son-in-law and falling in love with him immediately just because of his looks was funny. Although, query, could you imagine having to be Fran telling Sylvia that the engagement is off? Could you? That would be unpleasant.
Yes.
And this would be, the third engagement that, at least the third engagement that someone needs to tell Sylvia is kaput.
Mhm.
Um, anyway, I think it's great. I love how the engagement implodes because he makes a pass at Cece. And I mean, you did Cece justice by explaining how she, you know, that's right, that's right. Another man wanted me, Cece Babcock, to be his love toy. Like, it's great. The tones are great. Um, I mean, Philippe is definitely over the top, and the INS officer should not have bought a word he said. Um,
Mhm.
but anyway, I love this episode, so I'm giving it a 5. How about you?
I'm also giving it a 5. I literally laughed out loud several times during this episode. So, yes. And we got 2 new kisses to add to the kiss count.
Which I know makes you happy. It makes all of us happy, I think.
Yes. So,
If we
yeah.
have any listeners out there who are not cheering for Fran and Max, let us know. We want to hear your opinion. We don't agree with it, but we want to hear it.
But
Um,
also, like, the interaction between, like, I mean, Cece just had some great moments in this episode as well, because in addition to what you quoted, that whole scene in the kitchen and then Niles just being scandalized and coming in and saying, "Did Kaka do a no-no in the kitchen?"
it's a great line.
Yes. So a 5 from me.
I love it when we agree. I mean, we don't have to, but it's fun when we do.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I don't believe so.
All right. Well, that's all we have for you today. We hope you had a fine time with us as we revisited The Nanny. Join us next week when we'll be discussing episode 74, Ship of Friends.
If you would like to reach us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at Nanny Revisited. You can also send us email at afinetimenannyrevisited@gmail.com. Have a great week.